Hello and welcome to the show. My name's Relevant. This is Do All the Things. On today's episode, we're back with the YGA 1A signature amp, and we're simply going to bias it for some fresh tubes. Yeah, that's it. So my buddy that owns this finally sold him on some tubes. Gave him a deal he couldn't refuse. Basically, 3 used preamp tubes and a pair of these Russian specials. 6N3Cs or 6PS3PSP. Oh, jeez. There's all sorts of names they call them by, but they're basically a Russian 5881. Now this amp runs at a lower plate voltage, so it'll run these tubes just fine. Now one thing you gotta know about the Russians is the quality control is a bit iffy, but it just so happens that this pair of tube that I have, which is, you know, they're fresh, I think, but their match is damn near right on. Like, it's the best matching set of Russian tubes I've had come through my shop. I've been ordering a fair amount of these actually, because I get a kick out of them. They have a fun sound to them. Maybe a sound that he will like. But they're cheap. And for a secondary amp, he didn't really take that seriously. Cheap is what he needed. Need to get this thing running again so he can experience what an amp like this is like and figure out how to fit it into his tone spectrum. Now the preamp tubes I've sold him are some JJ-ECC 83S's, and I actually installed them into his Vox that I was working on to test it, and I forgot to take them out. So he's still running those tubes, and I have his original Vox tubes right here. So I've basically sold him my JJs, and I'm going to use these Sovtek 12AX7WAs. Now there's 3 positions that matter here. These 2 and this one. That's the phase inverter, and those are the 2 preamp sections. This guy here is Tremolo. If you don't use Tremolo, you don't even really need a tube in there. But Tremolo, the Tremolo tube is not in the audio signal. So you can pretty much throw any old tube that works in there and you're good to go. So I'm pretty much gonna take one of his previous tubes that was already in here and put that in there, and well, the Tremolo either works or it doesn't. But either way, we're not gonna have microphonic and tone issues. So it's important that these 3 get changed. Now for biasing, if you followed the comedy, last time I worked on this amp, I popped a couple resistors in it because my little testing device, I have a newer, better one now than I made. And this one will not bridge pin 1 and 8, so it'll be fully compatible with whatever tubes I want to put in here. I'm just gonna pick a whatever socket and schlop these puppers in. And the match is so tight, I'm not gonna bother testing both tubes. Or I might later, just not necessarily on camera. And I can tell you right away, the bases of these are so wide, we're gonna have to get rid of those bear traps. That's okay, I'm always removing the bear traps on these damn things, they just get in the way. I wanna completely remove this socket, I just wanna back that off enough that I can twist this out of the way and then get the screw back into place. Now there's a chance with a little bit of neglect he might lose a tube, you know? But with how often he'll probably use this amp, I don't know, maybe it's his new favorite amp. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'll just point out, yeah, I had to remove these retainers, so check your tubes every now and then, make sure they stay seated. Now this amp's already had a cap job, so that's half the battle. Now this testing device is gonna directly measure plate current. Nope, over here. So we gotta use an amp meter. And the thing in question we have to modify is this little resistor hiding right in there. And it appears someone's already modded on it, even though it's the stock value of 56K according to the schematic. It's right here, R33, even though there's no labels. We tap a little bit of voltage off the main transformer supply. Capacitor, we drop it a little bit. We have a diode in reverse to pull negative voltage to pass. Capacitor stores that. Then we have RC, basic power supply arrangement, another capacitor. And then we have the intensity pot. So that's kind of, the tremolo on this works, or the vibrato, or what do they call it on this amp? Tremolo. The tremolo works on this amp by varying the bias. It actually turns the bias up and down. So you can see the bias circuit is connected to this in such a way that it's gonna kinda agitate the grounding of the circuit. So it lets more or less bias voltage pass, yada yada yada. That's not what this video is about. But this 56K right here, what it's gonna do is gonna take the voltage on the power supply and bleed it to the ground. So the less voltage that hits the tubes, the hotter they're gonna run. So in this case, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna disconnect this resistor altogether. Now someone's already modded on this amp and put like convenient little kind of terminals in which to attach this to. But this is a tight fit, quite annoyingly so. Who knows, maybe this value is gonna go right back in. That was a little harsh, bud. And just clean up on these terminals a bit. Okay, so now with the resistor out of place, it's gonna let maximum control voltage hit those tubes, essentially putting them in their coldest state. So they can't run away like this. So now we plug this thing in, turn it on, and see where those tubes are gonna sit. Oh yeah, he's got a blown light bulb. That's the next thing I should, haha. Yeah, I'm gonna fix that while I'm in here. So we're gonna have heater voltage now. The amp should be active, standby's on, but you can see we got zero on there. Now carefully, I'm gonna be attaching some test leads. One side's ground, I can tell by the layout this side's ground. So this one's safe to manipulate. This yellow one, it's gonna be more harsh brown. That's our negative voltage. And our negative voltage is, maybe 6,200 volts, 50, it's often 50, 60 volts. Enough to give us a nice little nippy if we accidentally touch on it, right? I gotta find that resistor. I'm gonna clip on the negative side first, so it's safe to work. Now, when I clip on the positive side, let's see where that bias goes. Just going up, 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 up. 32.7. We're gonna get roughly 33. That's actually not too bad a start. So let's hook up our voltage meter. Find a ground, any ground will do, just attach it here to the chassis. Now I have to figure out what it says on our pin 3. Be careful not to touch pin 2 next to it. 413 volts. That's kind of great. That's right in the range of these tubes. And these tubes are 20 watt tubes. 20 watts divided by 400 and... Wait, how much voltage? My extreme short-term memory sucks. Divided by 413. All right, 48 is our max. That's 100%. Now people will go divide from here, but I'll clear a calculator and I'll just start with 48. Times 0.5, 50% bias. 24 is our minimum, then 48 times 0.7, 33 is our max. Oh, it's like it was meant to be, bud. That's perfect right there. I'm just gonna end up putting that resistor back in. Well, let's plug in, see what happens. All right, what channel? Well, you know what? You gotta jumper them, right? You can't see me doing this, but I'm doing this. Actually, someone disconnected. Huh, yeah, I gotta do that too. The two channels sound exactly identical because someone disconnected the bright cap. We're gonna have to put that back in. Okay, well, you know you gotta crank these things, right? It works for the most part. It'll need a little bit more high volume testing to make sure those tubes don't red plate, but it doesn't sound right without this capacitor in place. Why someone would remove a bright cap from an amp of this nature? I don't know. Maybe they wanted exclusively pedal use, but then it just makes the two channels the same. It's actually, there's literally no reason to do that. Or else tack that in there, but well, I'm not zoomed in much, probably not getting the detail of what's going on here. I'm just attaching a capacitor, bud. This should modify the tonal characteristics. That seems to be channel 2 that's doing that. So let's primarily plug into channel 2. Oh yeah, she's 10 now, bud. You know, these amp videos are starting to screw with my ears, so please forgive me. Let's see if that TID sounds a bit more martially as we wind it up. as is common with the jump ring, I'm gonna blend in some low channel, or dark channel. Oh, like the ceilings are raining again. Damn drop ceiling dust. But bias is holding. Still 32. Hasn't drifted much farther. I didn't see any red plating. I'm gonna call this bias good. Now I should fix on the pilot light. Pro tip, when you're working on an amp, leave the standby turned on and just flick the power, and then that'll allow power in the circuit to ventilate with the standby on. Turning the standby off before you turn the amp off is a quick and dirty way of keeping the capacitors charged, so that that's when you might accidentally electrocute yourself while you're screwing around in there. Of course, those capacitors will eventually run down, but still, we'll give it a few minutes. Or get our meter and start probing around the standby region. Probing around, probing around. Got voltage here, bud? Not much. Looks like it's mostly safe. Where's these caps? Still might be just enough to give me a little nip. I might probe and short out those cap contacts, those cap cons. All right, so that resistor, oh boy. You know, we probably could have tested the bias before we pulled the resistor out and saved ourselves a bit of time. But you know, you got fresh tubes and typically you don't want it running away, right? It also is being annoying because of all these twisty-loos they did. I wish this wire wasn't so short. It's like right in the damn way. What is that even? That's audio signal from the phase inverter. Let's shape this so we can snip it on there. All right, that bias resistor is back into place. So there's one other thing that I'm gonna deal with while I'm in here. A little bonus value add for Buddy. And that is, he is missing a pilot light. I got this here LED. Where is it? There it is. This is Digikey part number blah, 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 blah. Everlight Electronics. Warm white LED, 3.2 volt. 5 millimeter. 3.2 volts at 20 milliamps. 3.2 volts is like half our heater voltage here. Makes it a little bit easier to bias on this thing. I chose this one because the warm white is gonna be simulating of the pilot light that was originally in here. And it works really well with the red lens. Not so much with the green lens, but it still works well. And it has a decent amount of brightness to it. Replacing your pilot light with an LED, it's a surefire it's never gonna burn out again. It's less than $1 each. I need to order more of these. At any rate, I have already determined that to bias this for the heater, supply of an amp, AC, we're gonna use a 220 ohm resistor. Usually this value is a bit higher, but we want some brightness to this. And yeah, I've already done this test. It works great with a 220. Now this guy is a bit spun. So we have to like get that loose first of all. I wonder what size wrench that is. It's not gonna be this 15. Nope. Of course, the amp is unplugged right now. I wanna kind of see if we can tighten on this. She's just kind of spinning on us, bud. Well, it's tight enough, we should be okay. Now I wanna see if it has a spring assembly in there. Yes, it does. That spring assembly could be tricky. Oh yeah, it's got a little button in there even. Question is, do I want to permanently mod this amp and you never put a light bulb back in there again? Theoretically, that LED, you're not going to need to put a light bulb in there again. Can I rotate this barrel? Kind of stuck on there, right? Yeah, I can. Okay, I think I have a strategy. Hard bend, heat shrunk. Mounting this is going to be tricky. What I want to try to do is seat that in the bayonet section, kind of like that. Oh, we might have just enough length to interface with this connector. Except, we should double shrink the one side. Yeah, I have a strategy. We're gonna go ahead and get our resistor attached here. Tack that on, snip off the excess. More heat shrink on this side. See, at least the heat shrink on this side, if it comes off, the way the barrel is, it's the same polarity, it won't short out. But this side, we want it double shrunk. Mind you, if it does short out, it's not going to cause a problem because it's just going to cause voltage drop across that resistor, consuming like whatever frig all milliamps. The light will just stop working. I would work that heat shrink on there. Now we try installing it. So, I'm going to try to get this solder moist. Ooh, that melted like right away. There is quite the glob on there. Let's get that end bit. That's not solder. Now, in actuality, because of the nature of how this is, we don't need to go all the way there. We can see about getting a solder blob formed on the side of the barrel here. Oh yeah, look at that, bud. No problem. And boom, just fasten the LED down like that. And we need to open a hole back here. There should be enough room if I jostle this wire around. Yep. Oh, look at that. Bring that down. Bring that through. Give it a wrap around. Solder that in place. And then, you know, just kind of see if we could focus on this. Maybe aim it up a bit. It's a little offset. So, you know, a little bit more carefulity. You could maybe get it more central. But let's see. That's pretty good, actually. That's pretty good. So now when we plug in on this, give a little bit of power. Oh, look at that. Let's put the jewel back into place. That's not burning out again anytime soon. That's damn near a lifetime subscription to Pilot Light right there. And some might argue, oh, you need a flyback resistor, a freewheel. No. And some might argue you need like a freewheel diode on there because, you know, the polarity is going to shift on that AC and it's going to go the other way. Well, like, is there a reverse current limit on this thing? Because it is a diode. It's a one-way valve. It will do that. Forward current, 30. Peak, Zener reverse current, up to 100 milliamps. Reverse current, 50 microamps. Well, I've done this mod to amps before, where I put an LED and just one resistor, and I got that going on in my Marshall when its pilot light burnt out. That's 10 years ago now. Hits at LED. It's $1. If it burns out, we'll replace it like a light bulb, but I don't think it's burning out anytime soon. If I'm wrong, well, maybe I'll make up an update video for this in about 10 years. Just more a pain in the ass to replace. But yeah, should I split this into 2 videos? Oh, here's how to put a pilot light in one of these poppers. I don't know. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, stay tuned. I repair and mod on amps sometimes. Sometimes I do pedals. Sometimes I do guitars. Sometimes I do computers. Sometimes I do maybe dirt bikes or guns or something. I don't know. Just stay tuned, bud. It's that simple. You know you want to. And maybe one of my shticks is doing some weird thing with my hand at the end of the video. Last few I've recorded, I did some weird thing with the hand. I'm just like, oh, I don't know how to end the video. Oh boy.